Teagasc's James Doran talked to AgriLand about some of the do's and don'ts when grazing cover crops recently. At the time of filming, cover crops were being planted. As we move into the grazing season, farmers should aim to utilise as much of the crop as possible. Adjusting stocking rates according to dry matter content can increase the utilisation, as well as grazing management. The weather is the one thing farmers can't control.
So the carrying capacities are you generally work them back on dry matter basis. I suppose the best thing to do first of all is establish what dry matter you have on the crop by way of measuring it, which can be done fairly simply. But I suppose to give you guideline figures, a typical 4-ton crop to the hectare will carry 100 ewes per acre per week, 125 store lambs per acre per week, roughly 300 kilo weanlings per week, or maybe 8 to 10 dry cows per week.
Okay.
Utilisation is the big gamble, I suppose, with those fodder crops. If you get really nasty weather when you're on the crops, that can fall as low as 10 and 20%. But yeah, 70% is what is your target, and hopefully that's kind of where you're pitching it at. Also, if you're feeding, when we come on to it as regards to grazing management of it as well, but if you're feeding fibre sources, that will also help your utilisation figures and your intake figures as well. Allocating it on a daily basis will obviously help with a cattle scenario. I mean, for example, if you give cattle an allocation that will last them for a week and you get 3 or 4 bad days of rain or weather, well then they'll walk a lot of that crop and soil a lot of the crop on you. So if it can be done on a daily basis or 2 daily basis, you will get more value from it. And yeah, that's the big thing with it really, from an allocation point of view. You get away probably better with sheep. You can give them maybe bigger areas, maybe up to a week's allocation, because they tend to walk through the crop rather than I suppose across it.
Animals should be introduced to these crops gradually.
Yeah, so I mean the crop is obviously very, very high in energy and sugars, very, very low in digestible fibres, so it can cause digestive upsets if animals are introduced quickly. So you're looking at maybe on-off grazing for the first couple of days, absolutely making sure that they have a fibre source available to them, and I suppose it's slowly approach. For the first week you're kind of just gradually introducing them to the crop. Like I said, it is so high in energy, it's very, very close to feeding maybe a high proportion of meal in a diet. So if it's introduced too quickly, animals will get sick. You will see evidence of acidosis, and even in severe cases bloat and nitrate poisoning. So while it's a super feed quality, it just needs to be managed correctly.
Crops should not be grazed once they begin to flower.
If you're trying to establish when to finish up grazing your crops by, typically what dictates that is when the crop will go to flower, and that can happen in a mild spring somewhere in middle or end of February. So in an ideal world, the crops are to graze by then. Once the crop flowers, it's effectively saying that it is showing a level of toxicity there, and it's very difficult to establish whether that's safe or not to graze. So ultimately the safe decision is it's not safe to graze, and ideally have it all eaten off before the flowering appears.